Welcome to the Social World Podcast. I'm Dave Niven, and I'm glad to be back after a couple of months of a gap. Normal service is now going to be resumed, and today I'm going to interview Jim Hopkinson, who's the Deputy Director of Children's Social Care at Bradford Council, where I actually chair the Safeguarding Children Board. Now, it seemed very important and helpful to get Jim's perspective on things at the moment because he oversees a number of vital services for social services and has got some very good views and is also a great exponent of social media, which I think we all agree is going to be a new front, or an increasingly new front in terms of how we work, how we interact with the public, and how we actually get information across and information back. So Jim has kindly agreed to be interviewed today. Now, as well as that, starting next week, in the 25th of June, Bradford is hosting Safeguarding Week. It was Bradford was the original creator of this, and now many authorities across the country have duplicated this. And it's a fine idea because it showcases so many local groups, voluntary groups, professional associations, whatever, right throughout the week. And if you go to Bradford's website, you will get a full programme if you happen to be in the Yorkshire area over the next week or so, from the 25th to the 29th. So without further ado, and with that as a backdrop, I'm delighted now to move on and talk with Jim Hopkinson. Thank you. I'm joined today by Jim Hopkinson, who's the Deputy Director of Children's Social Care at Bradford Council. Now, Bradford, in case people don't know it, is a fairly substantial city in Yorkshire, and it's got about 500,000 population, and a very, very substantive part of that population are young people. Jim, welcome to the programme.
Oh, thank you, David.
Now, Deputy Director of Children's Social Care, it is and sounds like important, obviously, but do you think you could deconstruct it a little bit and actually say, firstly, what sort of things you're responsible for?
Yeah, thanks, David. Yes, well, first I'll say it's my privilege to work for Bradford Children's Services. As you said, a population of just short of 500,000. Under 18 population of just short of 150,000 children. It actually made Bradford, the demographics of Bradford, one of Britain's youngest city in terms of age profile. What I'm responsible for in Bradford is all the social work services, the social care services. I'm responsible for the youth offending service and youth offending services. Our Troubled Families programme, which we badge as Families First in Bradford, and also our prevention and early help services.
Right, so not a few things then, Jim.
Well, there's plenty to keep us busy. But one thing about working for Bradford, I'd say, is there's never a dull moment. But within that population of 150,000, we are the fourth largest metropolitan council in the country, is the most incredible diversity. And that's what makes the job so interesting. And if you use the word diversity, you can slice and dice diversity, and you will get that in Bradford between rich and poor, affluent and inequality, age diversity, ethnicity diversity, you name it, language diversity. It's got it all, which actually makes it a really, really exciting place, a really challenging place, but most of all, a really interesting place to do social work, to do work with families, and to do prevention work as well.
I'm totally aware of the diversity and actually the richness of it. What is it, Jim? It's something like 120 odd languages spoken in Bradford.
It's really easy to remember it. 123 spoken in Bradford. The ethnic makeup of Bradford is 65% or so white British. We have 30% or so of our population are from Southeast Asian heritage, particularly of Pakistani origin. A really, really vibrant community, particularly in Bradford and Keighley. And then we are a city of sanctuary, so we have lots of newly arrived community and a very large Eastern European community as well, particularly Slovaks. We've got the third biggest population of Slovaks in the UK.
I heard, Jim, that you were having some difficulty recruiting to people who might specialise in working with that community.
Well, actually, that's a really interesting point that you raised, David. So we are very, very proud of our workforce in Bradford. We've got about 800 children that work across children's services, around 200 social workers. And if you look at the diversity of our workforce, certainly in terms of our ability to get alongside, work, understand, be culturally competent with our Asian population, our workforce are brilliant at that. And I think our Asian families, Southeast Asian heritage, get as good a service as our white British families because of our cultural competency. I really can't say that about our Eastern European families. So increasingly, we have had more Eastern European children coming onto our caseload, whether that's child in need, prevention, early help, child protection, or looked after. And it does beg the question to me, if we had a workforce that included Eastern European social workers, for example, would we have been more successful in avoiding drift and delay, stepping those cases down faster, reducing the number of children that become looked after? So actually, if there's any Eastern Europeans listening, give us a ring and we'll be delighted to talk to you about.
Okay, good. Well, now, Jim, the pressure, the everyday pressure is quite intense because, Bradford, like any other major conurbation, has huge pockets of challenge as well as plenty of things to write home about. What over the years have you seen as sort of significant changes in terms of the kind of the focus of preventative work?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question and a really interesting question, David. So, first thing I'd say, incredibly busy. So we have around about 50,000 calls to our contact point in the year. So we are incredibly busy. From that, we're distilling that down to the best part of 5,000 assessments in the year at this moment of time. As we speak today, we've got just over 1,000 children who are looked after, around about 600 children on child protection plans, well over 1,000 children who are child in need. Now, actually, incidentally, Bradford outperforms the majority of our statistical neighbours in terms of rate per 10,000. So we've got less looked after children in child protection as a rate to 10,000 compared to many of our statistical neighbours. But we have seen all those trends going up. And if we look at the underlying issue, it is an increase in neglect-driven referrals. Now, part of that might well be because of our awareness of neglect, and you'll know, David, as the chair of our Safeguarding Children's Board, that we've done a lot of work on neglect. We've rewritten our neglect strategy. We've looked at thresholds as well. But you have to say that some of the reason that our neglect cases have risen has to be related to families in poverty, and that covers families actually of all ethnic groups in poverty. So that's the trend that we particularly see, an increase in neglect referrals.
I don't think anybody is denying the levels of poverty that exist today, and it really is a sort of a kind of a hand-wrenching kind of problem to think about how fast we can get out of it, and that doesn't seem to be a huge amount of light on the horizon nationally. Hey, anyway, Jim, let me ask you about something else, if I might, because I was talking historically there about changes that had occurred. I mean, in my view, and I wonder if you agree, I think that safeguarding measures can, and headings, if you like, can be put into a couple of different categories. One is the established categories. You've just talked about neglect there, and physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and so forth, and the whole awareness we've had of, say, domestic abuse now, over the years. But there's also a brand new group of categories that I would call the emerging safeguarding categories that are having to be sort of focused on, including kind of prevent modern day slavery, female genital mutilation, and so on. I mean, we talked about this, I think I was at a conference and you were there the other day, weren't you? So, I mean, complex safeguarding, what's your take on that?
Spot on, David. So yes, obviously the majority of the cases that come in are domestic violence cases, mental health cases, substance misuse, and we always use this mantra, isn't it? It's the behaviour of parents or the behaviour of adults that has particular resonance with the out children, and certainly always has been the reason that the majority of children have come into care. And lots of research, Joseph Rowntree Foundation, for example, the domestic abuse, mental health, substance misuse is more likely to increase in terms of adults that are in poverty. So that's bit that we just discussed. But yes, you are absolutely right. The world of complex safeguarding and those very, very challenging cases are increasing now, both on the fact that we have better knowledge, but also on the fact that probably there are more of those emerging cases as well. So our MASH, which incidentally are multi-agency safeguarding.
Yeah, I was going to say, you spell that out, because I mean, there's other countries listening who might need to have it spelled out.
Absolutely. So our multi-agency safeguarding hub, which includes social workers, police officers, health workers, all working together under one roof, and if you like, just taking the calls in, taking the referrals in, sifting them, saying how concerned do we need to be? Does this need an immediate Section 47, an immediate response, a medium-term response, or is this something that we can ask someone else to deal with? It's certainly dealing with some very complex cases. We have some particular expertise in Bradford, which we have a national reputation for in terms of our work with families where we think there is a risk of radicalisation. We have a track record of working with families where we think there's a risk that those families might be seeking to travel to conflict zones, and increasingly now about families that have returned from conflict zones, and whether or not that represents a safeguarding risk to children or not. It's a very complicated story. We certainly have in Bradford our share of children who are at risk of child sexual exploitation in an organised way. We've set up, as part of our multi-agency safeguarding hub, a child sexual exploitation unit. We have a very detailed plan around child sexual exploitation. That includes health workers, police officers, social workers, and the voluntary sector. And we actually have a very sophisticated way of being aware of the risk to that child today and the measures that we take place around. And now some of the issues that have come to the fore in the last year or so around modern slavery, children being trafficked into things like cannabis farms, as well as potential sexual exploitation. And again, the advantage of having a MASH, a multi-agency safeguarding hub, police officers, social workers working side by side, means that we're in a better place to develop strategies for these complicated cases.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been talked about over the years, and about working together and all the agencies, pooling their resources and actually getting on. And it took a while to really establish itself, but I mean, now it really is established well, isn't it? The multi-agency kind of facing the public and actually kind of being able to have collective thoughts on things.
Very much so. I agree. Yes. Yeah.
Can I just pick you up on one thing, Jim? I mean, or really add to it, if you like, is that you talked about families that were at danger of radicalisation and had travelled to Syria, for example. My understanding is that Bradford is a leader in working and preparing, if you like, for the return of families, whereas many other places, or most other places in the country where the similar radicalisation goes on, are mainly concerned with individuals.
Yes.
That is the case, isn't it?
That's very much the case, and we have provided help and support to other local authorities, and our police forces provided help and support to other police forces as well. It's a very, very complicated area.
Yeah, it is.
Because what we want to know is, are the children safe, and where does someone's proposals in terms of where they're going to travel to, where they're travelling back to, their religious beliefs, where does that come a safeguarding issue, and when is that just a human rights issue? You have the right to do that. Things, for example, like homeschooling, people who are being electively home educated, when is that a right and an entitlement that we should support, and when is that cross the line and become a potential safeguarding issue? These are very, very complicated judgment calls, and we only get it right if we put all the information that we have together, and that we have a suitably skilled social worker who ultimately can go and knock on the door of the family, engage them in conversation, explain why we're worried, and then come up with a safety plan if we remain worried after we've had that conversation. And what we've employed in Bradford to help us with those conversations is this technique of a framework called Signs of Safety. You'll be familiar with Signs of Safety, David, but Signs of Safety we have found as a very good tool for actually helping us to say, what are we worried about in this circumstances? What is the danger to the child in this circumstance? And actually get down to say, we are worried about this child because, and if we can articulate that with the family, then the next step is to say, we would not be worried with the child. What would need to be happen next is this, this, and this. Because actually, all families have got strengths, things that are going well. Many families have got things that we're worried about. Now, if we can articulate with the family, help them understand what we'd like to happen next, then we're in a stronger position. And that works well in all cases where children are coming through our safeguarding hub.
Right, let me move you on to, if I might, another subject. We kind of got about another 5 or 10 minutes, if that's all right with you, Jim. Let's talk about the future to some extent, and also what goes on behind the scenes. I wonder if the public generally don't realise that there is quite a lot of cooperation between children's services and adult services in local authorities, and there's now increasingly recognised there's plenty of areas of overlap, such as mental health or substance abuse, or like domestic violence, and of course sexual exploitation doesn't stop at 18, and there's the whole business of what we call transition from childhood to adulthood, especially if you've got, say, learning difficulties, if you have a disability, and it takes a bit longer and you need sort of support on all sides of the 18 years of age. So, Jim, do you want to just sort of, I'm hoping you're going to reinforce that and say that there is a lot of cooperation, and taking that forward then, so it's a long question, but is this digital question that we talked about earlier, what is the future of our service delivery in the future in an increasingly digital age? That's the sort of questions I'd like you to sort of wrap up with, if you could.
Yeah, well, so let me first endorse exactly what you've said. Then about some of the things that we've done in Bradford, and then I'll actually talk about where there are possibly some digital solutions. So you're absolutely right. We've got 1,000 children or so that are in our care at this moment of time. We're also actively supporting around about 300 children who are over the 18 who are care leavers, and we see it as our responsibility as corporate parents to continue to provide support to children beyond the age of 18, just as the majority of parents in this country continue to support their children beyond the age of 18. And then many of our children, by the way, who are looked after, doing extremely well. As we speak, we've got 33 of our children at university beyond the age of 18, but we support them at university. We support them when they come home in the holidays, as you would expect, with supported lodgings or staying put in foster care. But there is a group of children that come to our attention because of the significant difficulties that they have, such as emerging mental health issues, autism, Asperger's, learning difficulties, physical disabilities as well, where we know that their needs will continue beyond the age of 18, their support needs will continue. And you're absolutely right, vulnerable children that are being targeted for exploitation, child sexual exploitation, for example, that we manage very well through our child sexual exploitation unit, we wouldn't be casting them adrift on the day of their 18th birthday and say they're adults who are making their own decisions. They're still vulnerable adults who are being exploited. So we work hand in glove with our adult services, and particularly around disabilities. We've agreed actually that we start the transition process to adults at the age of 14 for those children with significant learning difficulties, physical difficulties, or mental health issues, such as we are fully aware that will continue to have support needs beyond the age of 18. We start that at the age of 14, transitioning the social worker. So at the 18th birthday, we're not just saying goodbye to this social worker, hello to this social worker. And we're proud of that. And that's working very well.
Okay.
To move on to the question about digital technology.
Yes, please. Yes, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
It's really important, actually, about how we utilise digital technology going forward. So, I mean, just as an example, we are equipping all our social workers with tablets because we know that our social workers who are doing good social work don't spend that much time in the office. They need to be out and about, visiting families, talking to families. And we don't want them to come back into the office just to write case notes. So the reason that we've equipped them with tablets is that so they can get our database on the move, that they can fill in the database on the move, they can get emails on the move, but more importantly, that when they're visiting a child or a family and they need to help that child and family make an application for school, for benefits, an application for any other resource, that's all online these days. And many of our families, we talked about significant levels of poverty, may not be online. So we can sit in their living room with a 4G enabled tablet and do that with them at that time. I talked earlier around signs of safety. Our social workers have a signs of safety app on their tablet. They can work with children doing what's called the 3 houses, drawing pictures of houses, what they're worried about, what they're safe, what they're happy about, what they want to do next, onto a tablet. It saves it, and that's our way of capturing the voice of the child. We save it, we can upload it to the files. Now, getting those tablets out and about would take me hours to explain the difficulties we had, getting them enabled, etc. But suffice to say, that's our ambition. We are going to be piloting, in conjunction with the Children's Society and the Children's Commissioner, a digital app for all our care leavers. So all our care leavers will be given a smartphone We know that some people have issues about credit and things, but we know that most of our young people with a smartphone can find Wi-Fi quite regularly, free Wi-Fi quite regularly, and have an app for our care leavers to keep in touch with their social workers, to get messages, to be able to apply for various issues through a smartphone app.
Okay.
We think that is the way forward.
That's a very good innovation, Jim.
A lot of that now around our disability services as well, around personal budgets, assisting families with personal budgets, assisting young adults with personal budgets, and again, using digital technologies to help those adults to get what they need using technology.
I'm going to have to just get us onto the last question, Jim, all right? And I tell you what it is I want to ask you, I promised I wouldn't ask you any difficult questions, but I'm going to ask you a difficult question. And it's just this to do with the use of technology. So we're in that world still. Many places around the country are actually looking actively at setting up a team or authorising people to look at the social media of families where children are subject to at-risk plans. How do you feel about that professionally? You know, because there could be argued to be an ethical issue there. At the same time, we've got the imperative that we must protect children at all costs.
Yeah. Very good question, David. So I would say that children's social work services are playing catch-up around social media, and we are playing catch-up. I can think, and I'm actually reasonably social media literate. I use Twitter actually as a good way of celebrating the success of Bradford, but actually I use Twitter as a very good way of up-to-date information about what's happening in the world of social care. So I'm a great advocate for Twitter. But some of the young people that we've worked with, particularly children who've ended up at risk of child sexual exploitation, the contact that they've made with people who are not suitable, in our opinion, who are seeking to exploit those children, has been online, and sometimes it's been using apps and social media that I'm thinking, I've never heard of that before. So it is really important that we are on the front foot if we are to protect children, and certainly that we continue to work through schools and parents to help parents understand the world of social media, what might be happening in the child's bedroom from their smartphone, and how they can apply parental controls and have conversation with their children about what they might be accessing online. Now, we are corporate parents to just over 1,000 children. We should be having the confidence to be doing exactly the same. We want our children to have smartphones because that's the way that the world does business now. But equally, we need to support our children to be safe around that. Now, in order to know that our children are safe, then I take the opinion that we need to work with our children and our families as part of our assessments. And I think we need to be upfront with them when we're talking them, you know, in terms of GDPR, saying this is what we're proposing to do. Certainly with our children who are in care. I do it with my own children. They have a smartphone. I'm paying for it. I've said as part of condition for having a smartphone, I have the right to look at your smartphone for every now and then, just to be assured that you are not getting yourself into difficulty. And I think we need all the information that we can get. So I think we have to go there, but we have to make that explicit that when we're having our conversations with children and families, that's exactly what we'll be doing.
Okay, yeah. I mean, just before you finish, Jim, I just sort of mentioned the fact that it was reported in The Guardian around the time of the death of Peter Connolly, called Baby P, which is a very cause célèbre in the UK, that his mother, who always had denied having had anybody else in the house, just the night before on her Facebook account actually talked about sort of sex, drugs and rock and roll and what a wonderful fella that she had now living with her. And if only people had possibly been monitoring the social media, there might, who knows, there might have been some kind of possibility of a different outcome. And that's the kind of basis for an argument that seems to be springing up across the country. Very, very briefly, what's your take on that, Jim?
I think, very briefly, David, when it comes to protecting children and making sure children are safe, we need to use every tool at our disposal. So the issue that we have in Bradford, as in every other city, is that we have children going missing from time to time. We need to track those children down as fast as possible to make sure they're safe. Social media would be one way that we would be working with the police to get some intelligence about where those children might be in order to make sure that they are safe. And most decisions we do hand in glove with the police, and we work with them incredibly closely.
All right, Jim. Look, it's been a pleasure having you on the programme. Thank you very much indeed. And, well, obviously I'll be in touch with you, but I mean, hopefully too, that you people will follow you as you are a prolific tweeter. So, okay, Jim, thanks again. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure, David. Thank you for having me on.